Alrighty guys, welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be talking all things holy relics. I did this video probably about over a year ago now, so I wanted to kind of redo it, give you guys an updated kind of recommendations of what I think you should be looking at. And kind of just because, one, there's a whole bunch new units, there's a whole bunch new holy relics, even the layout is different, so I kind of wanted to run through and show you guys kind of where I started, what I went for first, and what my reasoning and stuff behind that was. There'll be kind of a little bit of backwards and forwards of like probably it'll be broken down almost into tiers in terms of like, okay, what do I recommend you get in kind of like this is a must have, this is a good to have, and then this is like whenever you kind of feel like it. Obviously, if you use particular units first or you use more like a particular unit more than another, then you start there. This is just my recommendations. You're welcome to disagree with me down in the comments. But yeah, so without further ado, let's get into it. Now, I feel I'm a little bit qualified to talk about it. I have every single holy relic you can get apart from the last one. So yeah, let's do it. So when talking holy relics, the general rule of thumb, or the very first rule is you always get the holy relic that is for that particular beast's unit. Now, what I mean by that is, let's say you're doing bird or Helveskier, you want to get the holy relic for Magelda because Magelda is the bird's unit. She's the unit you want to use in bird. It'll make your life a heck of a lot easier. Same thing when it comes to the deer. The unit for this is obviously Jormungand. You want to get Jormungand's relic first. In dogs, you want to get Thonar's, and then in Nidhogger, you want to get Freya's. That's just kind of immediately the rule of thumb. You want to get the holy relic that's going to make your runs in that demonic beast easier, which means you can farm more holy relics, right? So that's the very first rule. So if we're going to start at deer and we'll work our way towards the end, the very first one you want is Magelda. That's just kind of it. Now I'm going to do this based on how good the holy relic is. It may not necessarily reflect how good that unit is anymore, because there's a few units in here obviously that are a little bit older. So we're going to go based off what the next picks should be if you use those units still, and kind of if those units were, you know, in their prime, so to speak. So the next couple of ones we'll put in the kind of the A tier. I definitely would say Brunhild's. Brunhild's is up there. Green Brunhild is still a very good PvE unit. And this holy relic is very strong. Basically, you can only be debuffed once and you increase the hero's attack. This Wedding Brunhild's dropped off a whole bunch, so she's not really that viable anymore. But if you can still use Green Brunhild for PvE. Next from there, that I found really useful from PvE activities when I was actually using Green Arthur a lot, because he has a really nice passive, is his Holy Relic. So his Holy Relic will decrease defense-related stats. It only works to a certain point on demonic beasts, but it'll work in PvP if you're using any of the other units. It will work in certain PvE activities. You'll automatically have a debuff, so you can use weak point skills, and it decreases defense-related stats by 20%, which is not a small amount. So really good unit as well there, or good Holy Relic, sorry, should I say. Next on the kind of A tier list would have to be the other Arthur. His relic is insanely good if you fulfill its conditions, which, of course, right? So basically, if the hero survives with less HP than 20% or equal to, all debuffs are removed and you get a full revive. It's basically like a full revive almost. So very helpful for keeping him alive and almost giving him a second life there. Next on the list, and the the only reason you'd get this one is for an increase in CC. I'm not putting it on the A tier list. That was at the wrong. The next one would be Merlin. Lolly Merlin is dropped off again quite a lot, but her basically increase in attack by 20% whenever an enemy is debuffed is really good. It's basically the same as Brunhild's, so very helpful. The next kind of three are actually these three here. So if you have these units, Gotha is, again, these units have all, like, they're not top tier, you know, meta units, right? But they all have decent holy relics. Jenna is really nice just because she boosts human allies' attack-related stats. I'd say it's not as relevant just because we've now got so many good supporting human units. So this would probably be on the lower end of the A tier pile for me. Gotha's is every time you get a full ult gauge, you get attack-related stat increase by 25%. Very nice for any sort of demonic beast activity you're doing. You can't really use them in PvP anymore, but very good relic for him, because it also increases, he has a pulverize, which increases his damage for each orb and his gauge as well. So basically push ult on him and you're in a good place. Next is the newest one, well, one of the newest ones for Bird, which is actually Zeneries. This is a really nice cleanse unit, which will increase your basic stats and heal you. So really just overall good support unit Zeneries turned into with this Holy Relic. Next on the list, this is where it kind of gets a little bit less kind of, you can kind of pick and choose as you go from there. Like if you'd started with that, the next one I suppose I would look at would be Escanors. Not because this Holy Relic is particularly good, I would say just because it will give you an increase in CC for LR Escanor. So that's the reason why I would look at that one. The other one that is actually a very good Holy Relic, but Barn is just so irrelevant now, it's not even worth it. He'll increase the hero's max HP by 15% every time an ally dies. So this was an insanely strong Holy Relic for Purgatory Barn in his prime. Again, great relic for him, but he's not really usable anymore. Once you kind of come down from there, let me see if there's this one's not bad. It increases your damage dealt by 35%, which is quite nice as a for Merlin, but we'll get to Nanashi later, where his Holy Relic is much better from the dogs if you can get the dogs, right? From there, yeah, it then depends. It kind of depends into just what you want to get from there. This Holy Relic isn't too bad for Shin if you're using him for farming activities. There's much better farming units now, but if you're debuffing, you will increase your damage dealt by 50%, which is quite nice. This rank up Gotha is not bad. It's every time you use a buff or debuff skill, it's a 10% basic stat increase if you use 10 buffs or debuffs, which is not that bad at the face of it, but it excludes so much. So it excludes debuff attack skills, it excludes PvP, and excludes deathmatch. So if this was a little bit less restrictive, then I'd say this would be very good. But also the fact that you can't really use rank ups in Demonic Beasts kind of really limits that. And that's kind of probably most of it. The rest of them kind of just fill in, this looks nice at a high level, but it's more just for he's not a damage dealer anyway, that Barn's a support unit. So the rest of them are kind of, are nice to have, some will increase your CC and stuff, but they're not really anything kind of crazy. Sigurd, I suppose, is an honorable mention. Sigurd's not bad. If you're using him in the Ragnarok team, it'll increase the basic stats by 25% of the basic stats of the enemy with the highest combat class. So if you're facing a melee or something, you'll get a 25% stat increase based on that. And that combined with his passive works quite well with Tyr. So I suppose that's probably an honorable mention for almost even like an A grade. I really actually liked using this Holy Relic, but it's not really noticeable anymore. You don't really run him with the Unknown or Ragnarok team anymore. So I suppose just to recap, always start with Migueldas for this one, and then from there I would recommend something like Brunhild's, either of the Arthurs, Zeneries. These are all good choices. Then you can come down to honorable mentions probably like Sigurd. You can look at, Shin, Merlin, LR Escanor just for CC, Purgatory Barn. That's kind of the order I'd look at that. And then from there, you can basically just fill them in as you want. If you've got a particular character you like, you can use that, anything along those lines. Now, these ones, the only one that actually, I suppose, again, this is another honorable mention I would call out is actually maybe Twigos. Now, Twigos doesn't actually require the full wind source like the rest of them do. He just needs the little magnificence pieces and then the cubes and the pizza slices. That's what I call them. So it actually increases HP related stats by 30% and taunts. So he was actually super useful and super helpful, part of the red human HP team, and can actually be useful in some scenarios if you do want to use him. So that Holy Relic is definitely an honorable mention there. Now, that was the boss with the most amount of Holy Relics, so we're going to move a little bit quicker on now through them, hopefully. But next we'll go to Deer. Now, again, stuck record, and I'll be a stuck record for the rest of this video. Start with Yorms, it's always the way to go first. Then from there, you only have two of the ones that three of them that don't require a wind source. You kind of can ignore all of these. None of these are anything kind of overly good. This is nice, but you use Zeldris in the back instead of Helbram anyway. And this is nice if you're kind of countering an Alt Rush team in Brawl, but that's kind of about it for those ones. In terms of the next must-gets, I would definitely say it's going to be LR Liz and her Essence of Yggdrasil, the ring, basically. This increases all allies' HP-related stats by 15%. It works across the SR Liz in the back. It works across Suicide Liz. It works across Green Liz. It's a very, very good Holy Relic. Green Liz, LR Liz. I mean, LR Liz was a replacement for Green Liz, basically, in PvE activity. But Red Liz is actually useful in the back as well sometimes. But this combo of LR Liz with her healing ability plus this HP related stats is too good not to get. So that would definitely be my next recommendation. The only other ones really, I mean, New Wings Kings one is actually really good if you run this King, right? Obviously this King is kind of outdated very hugely now, but this King still has its, not a place in the meta, but it's almost like a sub-meta fun class you could run with Glocks, and you do need to have this card to make it valuable. So, or this Holy Relic to make it valuable. So definitely first is Yorm, definitely second would be Liz's. I'd definitely put then Kings in an A category. And then I think I'd then look at probably all of the rest of the goddesses. Now, if I can find the one I'm looking for. This one. So this one again will increase heroes damage dealt and decrease heroes damage taken. This is nice if you have LR Liz. And it is also nice, very nice for Nidhogger if you are running her as the goddess team, right? So this is a very, very nice Holy Relic to have. To be fair, now that I say that, that's probably the main one. This one was great for Sariel in the beginning, but you don't really use Sariel too much anymore. He is only really used as a link, so that was a really good unit. That's a really good Holy Relic for him because it increases his basic stats when he crits, which he obviously has a Sever AoE card. So that's very nice, but not as key anymore. I suppose one that's actually snuck up that I probably wouldn't have recommended too much would actually have been the Liz's. Now, this is basically anything in PvE, you get an attack increase of 50%, which is really nice. So I use Green Liz for Belmoth Demon, I use Red Liz for the Time Limit Dungeon, and you can obviously use the Blue Liz as well if you do have her. So actually a very nice unit, very nice backline unit Holy Relic for PvE content, like farming, gold, clearing Fort Solgris, anything like that. So that's definitely probably up there for me. Apart from that, like there's a few nice ones in terms of like older units. Like this is nice because it increases this Liz's barrier, but we don't really use this Liz anymore. This was great when Blue Ludo was still a thing and could still out CC people, because this would increase his basic stats, which would help obviously his PvP effect. Tarmuel's is pretty decent as well because it implies an alt disable effect, but again, like you wouldn't really run Tarmuel on the front, right? You run Tarmuel as a link. So I suppose, again, God tier, always start with Yorm. This is an insanely good Holy Relic. This is probably the best Holy Relic out of all of the main ones, the ones for the bosses. It's so strong. It cleanse debuffs, increases ranks when you use, different skills from different people. Then definitely God tier is the Liz one. Then from there, I like Redhead Liz. I like having Ludos purely for kind of the basic stats and stuff when you're running LR Liz or Summer Margaret in LR Margaret, or you're running Summer Margaret in Nidhogger, right? And then from there, like I said, King is really fun if you're running King, and then it kind of descends into the pick whatever you want category. These three obviously don't require the river source, so you can get these on your way to getting these as long as you have excess of the Valkyries piece, the Q piece, and then the pizza pieces. But yeah, so that's probably the top 4 or 5 I would do from the deer. Now, moving on to the dogs. So again, start with Yorms. Start with Thonars. Thonars will increase your HP related stats, which includes things like recovery rate, lifesteal, all that kind of stuff, and fills ultimate gauge, so you can push ults really nice and fast. So definitely start with Thonars. She'll be the best bet. Now, this is where it gets, I wouldn't say complicated or tricky, but it becomes more interesting. So I really like Ragnarok Diane's Holy Relic. This is basically, if you use her in PvP, you have a damage cap of 50%, and you increase attack related stats by 1% for every 6% of remaining HP. So if you're at full HP, what's that quick math? You get like almost like a 16%, 17% attack related stat increase, which is really, really nice. So that's a good one. Demon Zeldris is actually really nice. Decreases debuffed enemies' attack related stats by 10%. So that works really nicely in combination with obviously his passive, which is the more debuffs they have, you increase basic stats. So that's a really nice backline unit. Actually, cut all that. Cut all that. I totally had a mind blank. The one you want after Thonar is Nanashi's. Hands down. Can't believe I forgot about it. I'm an idiot. Flame me in the comments. You go Thonar and then you go Nanashi. Nanashi's Holy Relic is so overpowered. It increases all unknown basic stats by 30% and then increases defense related stats by 20% if you have 2 or less skills. And that is on top of his passive, which increases max HP, crit resistance, and crit defense when and reduces and has ult gauge control. Nanashi's is probably almost better than Thonar's, but you still, well, it is better than Thonar's, but you want to get Thonar's first so you can farm the rest, right? So Nanashi's is definitely the top tier pick. You've got to get that next. That's just insanely broken. Next from there, yeah, honorable mentions, you could definitely look at Zeldris and Ragnarok Tien if you use her. Those are both really, really good choices. I mean, he's completely irrelevant. And again, Glocks if you're running the fairy team unit, right? Like this is a really good unit for fairy teams. So again, this is in combination with New Wings King or Jelly King in the Dear Demonic Beast, right? I really like, he's not relevant at all, but this Holy Relic for Chandler is actually very strong as well. Removes debuffs, decreases damage taken, and increases HP related stats. So I really, really like this. It was very, very strong. It's very helpful and come in clutch quite a few times. Scardy's is decent, increases basic stats if you're not debuffed, which is nice. So always increasing her basic stats is good. I liked King's. It increases the damage dealt by 15% and increases basic stats of the allies protected by the shield. So not only do you get a stronger shield, but you also increase your basic stats of your allies. That's very nice. This one is kind of okay for if you're looking to increase basic stats in Knighthood boss battle. So I do use, if you're running Green Elaine as a support unit to the Goddess team to try and get max points, that's nice to have as well. I suppose this one's a little bit more sporadic. So the top two you definitely want are Thonar and then Nanashi. 100% these are the first two that you want. Then I would probably say if you're kind of looking to push more points on Goddess teams, you could obviously always do Elaine's. Like I said, I like Ragnarok Tien's and Zeldris's. I think they're very strong. And then honorable mention will go to Chandler, King, and obviously you do Glocks if you're building out the fairy team, and Scardy, I suppose, honorable mention. The rest of them are whatever. This one increases giant basic stats. The only time you use this would be when you combo it with this to maximize points on certain bosses. So yes, this one is useful, but it's not by any means a must-have. So again, I'd say Thonar, Nanashi, then I would probably go Zeldris, Glocks if you're doing Fairy Team, Ragnarok Tien if you're doing Ragnarok Team, and then you could look at a couple of the giant ones, or you could look at like Chandler or King as well. Don't even look at something like this. This is just irrelevant. So, and other ones are, yeah, the rest of them are kind of just whatever unit, whatever holy relics. All right. Hope you're all still with me. We're keeping on. We're almost done. We're on to the final one. We're on to Nidhogger. Again, where is it? Oh, I've gone past it. Yes, way past it. We start with Freya. Demonic Beast Battle. This will give the goddess. So if you're running the goddess team, this will give her goddess race, and it'll increase all your stats, and it'll give a stance cancel and stuff. Incredibly helpful and effective when you're running, Ella, Liz, Mael, all that kind of stuff, right? So definitely start here. From there, the next one you definitely want to look at, I would say, is it's almost like a three-way tie for me. So I would say it's between Freya's, which increases basic stats and single target damage for unknowns, and Ragnarok's. For Roxy's, for her basically crit damage and for humans, and then Merlin's for sins. So this one's really interesting. It kind of depends on, are you an unknown player, are you a human player, or are you a sins player, right? And that'll really dictate which one you get next. I I think most of you will probably be on the Sins side of things. So then you want to look at Merlin's because it decreases damage taken and increases basic stats. I'm not going to read through every single one. You guys can obviously do that in your own time. But yeah, that's probably say Roxy's is very strong, makes her very, very strong. She's a bit of a glass cannon, but it makes Blue Roxy very, very strong. Merlin is basically the new backline unit for the Sins. And then Freya will make a really good unknown buffer as well. So that's probably the next suggestions. Then from there, I would probably look at Diane's. I really like Diane's. It increases your allies' damage dealt when you have a stance. So these two, the old Festival Diane's dropped off a little bit for sure, but the new green Diane is still somewhat useful and beneficial. So you can use this when you're doing like Demon King fights or something like that. So that would probably be my next choice. And then from there, unfortunately, it's a little bit. This is a great Holy Relic for Losfane, for LR, but he just became the outdated Meliodas so fast with Demon King Melee. So this is a really good Holy Relic for him because it synergizes really well with his cards that increase his ult gauge, but it just doesn't. It's just not. You don't pick him. You don't use him. Same thing with Assault Melee. I really like his Holy Relic, and he is fun in certain scenarios, and it does link well again with his Amplify cards and stuff, but you're not really running these two. Same thing with you're not running Zeldris. This again is actually a really good Holy Relic, but we have Demon King now. So there are certain scenarios where maybe you're going to use this Zeldris instead of Demon King, but yeah, it's just they all got replaced, right? So that's kind of the problem. One Speeds is a bit of a joke. Esterosis is fine. It depletes ult gauge, but it's completely irrelevant, I find. Liz's is mid, as it's just not worth it. It seems good on a lookout level, but again, she's just kind of irrelevant, unfortunately. So, like, there's actually some good relics in here. Like, even this relic for Melascula is pretty decent, but it only really works with this red Melascula, and it only really works in specific scenarios, like with a tier combo or something like that. So, again, Zeldris for LR Zeldris, yes, sure, this does nicely increase his basic stats and stuff, but I don't really like LR Zeldris personally. That's just a personal thing. So, yeah, okay, quick recap. Always start with who you need. Freya, she'll work really, really well on the Goddess team. Then from there, you're looking at a three-way tie between Roxy, Freya, and Merlin. Again, you want to break it down by do you run Sins, do you run Humans, or do you run Unknowns? Roxy will make a really good for like fast clears of things, but yeah, you kind of want to break it down by that. Then from there, you can look at Diane's. I think Diane's is definitely probably the next choice for you, unless you're a bit of a sucker for demons and you love demons, and then you can look at maybe LR Zeldris, maybe Assault Melee, or yeah, probably those two, Assault Melee or LR Zeldris, I would say. Again, I'd actually really quite like this Zeldris, but it's just he just gets replaced too quickly by LR Zeldris or now Demon King as well. And then from there, it kind of descends into, yeah, whatever you want. This would definitely be the last one I'd probably recommend doing. It increases basic stats. The only thing it's good for is this. It seals ult gauge like for this unit, but he's not out CCing anyone anyway. So that would be the order I would go in for Nidhogger. And lucky last, we only have one for Ratatosk. So obviously, if you're farming this and, well, not farming this, but if you're doing this and you feel confident you can get through enough floors, then obviously you can get Mael's Holy Relic. It looks very good. It'll hopefully it'll increase a little bit of the Goddess's power in PvP, and I think it'll help even more in PvE if you're doing Nidhogger. But obviously, I think we will be receiving a Holy Relic or a unit that's specific for Ratatoska. So, you know, I always like looking to save for that as well. So that is all 4.5 of the Demonic Beasts, what my recommendations are for each of your Holy Relics. I hope that was helpful, guys. Let me know if you disagree with anything that I've said, or if you have any questions or comments. I'll be happy to help. Just throw them down in the section below. And we'll continue this kind of Demonic Beast section where I'll go through and I'll start explaining in a bit more detail all the different Demonic Beasts if you're a bit newer and you don't know how to do them. So if you do like that, feel free to stick around, throw me a sub, and as always, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.